Well, hello everybody. Today is Sunday. Today is Sunday, May 3rd. Hi everybody. Let me put something in the chat. Here we go. Oops, no, we're going to paste it. There we go. Hi Lisa. There we go. So I just put something in the chat, which is the book that I've been talking about. Today is day 8 and the final segment of the positive purpose of negative emotions that we started 8 weeks ago. I was really just planning to talk about it for 1 week. And I thought, well, I'll extend it to 2, but now we've gone 8, and I'm telling you, that's where we're gonna stop with that. So the topic today is avoiding emotionally charged conversations. And that's where the negative emotions come in and then they take over. So let me just give you a recap of what we've been doing for the past 8 weeks. So I've got an ebook by the name of The Positive Purpose of Negative Emotions. In my coaching, I've been coaching for 25 years at the International Academy of Self-Knowledge. I started off in the 70s teaching school, and then I realized I'm never going to make a difference with these kids teaching the way that I have 36 kids in a class, right? And I had 6 classes of that, teaching them Spanish. And I realized that when they left my class, they really weren't transformed as a people, as kids. They were speaking Spanish more, which that's awesome, right? But they were, so Johnny comes into my class and he leaves my class, not a transformed, he's the same Johnny as he ever was, but he's more Spanish speaking Johnny. Now, let me adjust this. Now, when I do my work and somebody leaves my class, well, they're a different person than who entered and came into the class. So that is really something that I'm very interested in. Now, over these 25 years, I've seen a lot of negative emotions come and go. And it seems to be the most common thing that people don't know what to do about their emotions. And this sort of kind of harkens back to segment 1, which was just generally the positive purpose of negative emotions. I just put the link up there so you can download it for free. And in that day, what I was saying is people don't really know how to handle their emotions. Should I express them? Should I stuff them? Maybe I'm going to avoid them. Maybe I'll try and escape and, eat or smoke or, do something. So this is the thing. In the first day, I said, listen, the negative emotions actually have a positive purpose. And their positive purpose is their messengers. They're trying to tell you something, that something is wrong, that they are the equivalent of physical pain. So if we're running along and we hurt our knee, it's like, well, we don't keep running because hurting our knee lets us know that something's wrong. So that's what we established in the first week. And then in the second week, after you downloaded the book, you found that there was a flow chart in the book called How to Bring a Non-Conscious Thought into Conscious Awareness. And you would go through this flow chart. And that's what I want to talk about today, a little bit more about the flow chart and what we do when we have to say something to the person. I'll get back to that in a minute. But that's what we did in the second week. Then in the third week, we talked about the 4 expressions of mind, that there's universal mind, there's your superconscious mind, which you call your solar spirit. Hi, Kathy. Welcome. There's your conscious mind, and then there's your subconscious mind. And we learned about that. And then the next week, we learned about levels of consciousness. And so everything what I'm going to talk today about, avoiding negatively, emotionally charged conversations, we kind of have a backdrop of a prerequisite of 7 other conversations that I've had over the weeks. I'm going to take this series of 8 and put it on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll do that within the next week or so. So they'll all be there. But currently they are on my timeline. If you go to Libby Adams, well, that's where you are right now. All of them are there listed. Okay, so we talked about the 3 levels of consciousness in the 4 week. In the 5th week, the question was, who are you? Okay, in the 6th week, we were talking about applied spirituality. So between the 5th and 6th week, then we started to take a little bit of a turn, We said, well, Wayne Dyer says we're spiritual beings having a human experience, right? So if I'm a spiritual being, what's with all this negative emotion? What's all this anger? And then when we were in week 6, we're talking about applied spirituality. If I'm a spiritual person, why am I not applying my abilities? Why don't I behave like a spiritual person? Why am I angry over here? And why am I sad and guilty and all fearful and all this stuff, especially with the coronavirus? It's like fear all over the place. It's like, if I believe in some kind of a higher power, what am I fearful about, right? So we talked about that in the applied spirituality. Now, last week, I was talking about how negative emotions really get in the way of our consistent performance. It's like if we have a negative emotion, let's say we've said we're going to do a certain thing, and then the negative emotion comes along. It's like, I don't feel like doing that. I'll do it later. So the negative emotions takes your performance and just knocks it out. So there goes the consistency. And then I was sharing, how so common to hear people say, well, it's 21 days to create a habit, right? And I said, don't be so sure. And I shared my experience about jumping on my rebounder with you last week. And I said, I've been jumping on my rebounder for like 29, 30 days in a row. And then I also shared in this corner where I'm sitting for Facebook Live, usually is my rebounder. And so I took it out and I put it in another room. And from that time, I jumped on it twice. And then it's like a month went by and I didn't jump on it. So last week I was saying to you, all right, I haven't been consistent in doing what I wanted to do because I didn't have a good plan. Remember last week we talked about you have desire, you have a good plan, and then you take action. That's what consistency is, right? But also the negative emotions really get in the way of taking the right action. But anyway, I said after this Facebook Live last week, I will bring my rebounder back in and put it in this place. And that's exactly what I did. I committed to rebounding. So those are little mini trampolines. I committed to rebounding 6 out of 7 days. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't do all 7 because I didn't say I would. I did exactly what I said I would do. And it was easy. I brought my rebounder back. Now today, I did not put the rebounder in the other room. It's right around the corner. It's like 2 feet away. So when I roll this out of here, rebounder is coming back in. I'd be curious to know, how everybody else did, or if people committed to doing, their things. Kathy, you said that you were rebounding, right? Because I saw that you had put something in the comments that you said that you were going to do your rebounding. So if you have anything to report, you can go ahead and stick that in the comments. Now, today's topic is avoiding emotionally charged conversations. It's like, who wants to have that, right? It all goes back to this flow chart. So I'm not going to review the flow chart because you can go back to number 2. Lesson number 2 explains this whole flow chart, which is in the book on page 12, and you can just print it out like that. Kathy said, yahoo, I did it every day. See? So there you go. You had a good plan. You were consistent. So congratulations on that. Good for you, Kathy. I really thought that you would. So let's talk about these emotionally charged conversations. And I want to talk about this one where it says, now remember we said negative emotions can only send 2 possible messages. One is the thought is incorrect, so change it, and the other is correct action is needed, so take it. It's right there. But we go down our flow chart, and when we need to take correct action, look at the A. What action do I need to take, right? So in this, where it says, is this statement true? And then we say, yes, it's appropriate. It's appropriate for me to be angry about this. So if I'm angry, it's like, okay, good, I'm angry. Well, what action do I need to take? See, correct action is needed, so take it. So now we go into the what action do I need to take. Today, I want to talk about this A, say something to the person. And I talked about this a little bit, but I really want to emphasize it and tell you why, okay? So when we were talking about the levels of consciousness, we said, as spiritual beings, there's like our higher self, our spirit or our soul, and we're loving and we're kind and we're compassionate and all of that, right? And then I also talked about the little eyes when I was showing you the transformational meditation model a few weeks ago, that we have these little eyes that are parts of us that are not at all ambassadors for our spiritual selves, right? But they still exist. So we don't want to let these little eyes, everybody knows what parts are, like this part of me, like, some people kid and they say, oh, the devil made me do it. It's like, yeah, this part is not with the spiritual program, right? And so on that 45-minute masterclass, which you can click on when you sign up for the book, and it takes you to the next page. By the way, when you download that book, you don't need a credit card for anything. Everything that you click on is free there. The book is free. The masterclass is free. And what I'm hoping for, really, after doing 25 years of this with people, I'm hoping that you will see enough value in that masterclass when you find out, some of the things that we've been going over, but it's in detail. And you'll say, you know what? I would like to talk to one of those Academy of Self-Knowledge coaches. I would like to talk to them for 15 minutes free and talk about my situation and ask my questions and see what my next step might be. So that is the end result of that masterclass that I'd like to see happen. But going back to the emotionally charged conversation. So on that step of say something to the person, what I'm saying is we do not want the little I to do the talking. That section is called correct action is needed, so take it. It doesn't say incorrect action is needed, so take it. So what that means is you have a message. The reason I'm feeling angry is because something happened or somebody did something and it was inappropriate, right? I gave the example in the book of where my neighbor was criticizing my dress. And she goes, oh, you should never wear that dress. And I thought, wow, And so I said something to her. I said, I'd appreciate it if from here on out, this is one of my favorite dresses, and I'd appreciate it if you would not comment on my wardrobe ever again. And she didn't. She said, oh, sorry, like that, but she never said anything again about it. So the point of that, when we want to say something, I don't say to her, oh, you make me so mad because you said that about my dress. We do not mention the negative emotion at all to the person. Because now when we bring up, now we're getting into the meat of like my 3-minute conversation on this. When we bring up something about I'm angry and I'm angry at you, they're going to be defensive, right? So the message that I'm giving them doesn't need to be, the message that I'm giving them shouldn't be I'm angry at you. Remember, the anger is the messenger for me to let me know that I need to say something to them. So when I say it from this place, from the vantage point of my spiritual self, or at a minimum, the conscious mind, calm, and just requesting the behavior change or saying what it is that they did that you didn't like, or telling them, what you'd prefer them to do next time. But the key is do not mention that negative emotion when you're talking to them. Okay? Oh, you hurt my feelings and I feel bad because you did such and such, such and such. Well, let's talk to them about what it was they did, because imagine how defensive they're going to be when you say you hurt my feelings. So in other words, this whole conversation is best with the negative emotions left out of the conversation. So we're just talking about the thing that we want them to correct. In other words, we could have entitled today, negative emotions, problem or solution, right? To the degree that we keep focusing on the problem, well, you did this and that made me mad. You did this and that made me mad. We're not even getting into the solution. We're talking about the problem, okay? So this will also make more sense. I'm assuming that, you've read the book and hold on a second. You're welcome, Lisa. That you've read the book. And if not, it's right there. You can download it. You can download it for free. And I'm going to recommend again that you watch the masterclass. And I know a lot of you aren't here today, so that I'm speaking to those of you who will be watching the rebroadcast of this. Click on that masterclass, which comes after you download the book, and then watch that and see what questions you have, especially about what I've been talking about here for the past 8 weeks. So today is the wrap up of the positive purpose of negative emotions. So I hope that it's been useful for you And again, feel free to email academyofselfknowledge@gmail if you have any questions, or watch the masterclass. So thank you for following along all these weeks, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye.